I'm the river, I'm the rain, the lonesome whistle of a train. I'm the amber waves of grain. I'm the highway, I'm the farm, fertile fields and boulevards, the hand that rests over your heart. Oh, I'm the echo of the bell that's ringing. Oh, I'm the freedom in the song we're singing. I'm the seed that's in the dust. I'm the prayer in God we trust. A place to dream for all of us. I'm America. Dance, the open window to a chance, the place where courage takes a stance. All the colors that you see, the lights from 30,000 feet. Yeah, I'm the roar of victory. Oh, I'm the echo of the bell that's ringing. Oh, I'm the freedom in the song we're singing. I'm the seed that's in the dust. I'm the prayer in God we trust. A place to dream for all of us. I'm America. I'm America. I'm the fathers, I'm the sons. I'm the footprints in the mud. I'm a shelter washed in blood. Oh, 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 I'm the seed that's in the dust. I'm the prayer in God we trust. A place to dream for all of us. I'm America. I'm America. I'm America. I'm America.
Welcome to HomeFront Sitrep. I hope you're in for a great show today, because I'm just a veteran talking about what's on my mind and maybe yours.
You can find HomeFront Sitrep on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can also check out HomeFront Sitrep's YouTube channel.
Buckle up, the show is starting. Welcome, everybody, to a Sunday edition of HomeFront Sitrep. How is everybody doing? Mr. Samuel Deeds, how are you, sir?
Good, man. Good. Got a weekend off this weekend. Mother Nature rolled in here, brought some snow, brought some ice. So we decided not to go to Appalachian State this weekend to perform, and because the weather there was looking the same way at jump time. I think they were looking at 30-mile-an-hour gusts. So not conducive to good skydiving. So we made the right call, stayed home. But the wife had a lot of honeydews, so a couple new lights up in the master bedroom or bathroom, And then the wife surprised me with a 75-inch TV, and we've been watching sports all weekend.
Oh man, I'm jelly, bro. I'm
It's
jelly.
nice. It's nice.
So there's this the projector on TikTok that I can download because I stream all my TV, and this projector will do up to like 120-inch TV on the wall. So I told the wife, and
Yeah.
it's only like $30. I'm like, dude, let's do it, let's get it. And she's like, no, we don't need it. I'm like, yeah, we do.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
So
Especially if it's good definition. Like I'm telling you, we hooked it up last night and we started watching stuff, and I'm like, you can see every blade of glass. You can see, all this other stuff that we couldn't see in our old TV. And then
yeah,
we start watching like college football last night, and some of the things that you can see that I didn't see before, just because the advances that have come. I mean, I think our old TV is like 5 years old, but this one's like a QLED or something. So it's
oh
meant
man,
for it's meant for a not like a darker place, like that's the OLED, but like a mid, but it has anti-glare on it and all this other stuff. And we've been watching football today, and I can't wait for NASCAR season to start next year just to see what those things look like.
oh man, I can only imagine what NASCAR is going to look like on it.
Yeah,
Heck yeah. So I had a good week. PT's going, still going slow, but it's still going. I start back tomorrow for another week of 3 days, 3 days of the week. And then we had my mother-in-law spent the weekend with us because she just came home from the rehab facility and stuff like that. She was in there for over a year, and now she's at home, and her patio home's all one level, and we were kind of afraid to get her in our house, how she was going to be able to come up the steps to get into the house, but she did good. We went to church this morning, and she really enjoyed going to the church this morning with Julie and the kids. And it was just it was a pretty laid back kind of weekend, kind of sort of. So I'm ready to rock and roll with tonight's episode, and just hang out. We're still praying for Miss Candace. She's still dealing with her medical issues, and hopefully one of these days she'll get back up on her feet and she'll be back on the show. We're just letting her take care of her. Self-care is very important when it
sure.
comes to taking care of other people, and we talk about that all the time. So you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of others, because that mental fatigue and it just kicks in really
Yep.
quickly if you're not careful. So you
And
definitely,
and that's not saying, and that's not counting the other, medical issues that she has,
yes,
and
yeah,
and a lot of times that stress and fatigue can, make some of those other issues flare up too. So, you got to take that time to rest, relax, get yourself right, before you can come back and start helping other people.
yeah. So like with talking about mental fatigue and PTS and stuff like that, kind of goes into our guest that we got today, because she's got over 40 years of life experience. She's a dedicated psychotherapist with over 40 years of life experience and a deep understanding of mental health challenges, inspired by her military career, where she witnessed the mental health struggles of the veterans, and further motivated by the widespread challenges highlighted during the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm super excited about this guest. She is visiting us from across the pond, as we like to say here.
You don't say that. That makes us sound uneducated. Come on.
No, she's coming all the way from the UK. I'm super excited about having her on here and talking about the struggles that that European veterans go under. Just they go underneath the same struggles that we do, but I like to see how they handle the situations over in the UK and in European countries. So
Yes, we had a guy who served with the Brits, and he came over, I think 5 or 6 years ago for our Warrior Weekend, and he was telling us like they have nothing like that over there. And so he came back in, I think it was this past year or last year, he came back in, and he was able to, see the changes that we had made, and that they're wanting to get more for their service members over there because there's not a whole lot of support from what he was saying. So I'm excited to see what Philippa has to say tonight, and her insight on that. And when Mike does come over, we do fly the Union Jack with the American flag. He's present, so we still get to fly that quite often.
Nice.
We're teasing her a little bit beforehand because she didn't have one on hand to put up behind her. But
Yeah, definitely.
all right, we love our brothers and sisters from across the pond. Obviously, the Marine Corps, was derived from the British Royal Marines. They had just had their birthdays, and of course, you and I got to work with them early on in our career at Bridgeport. When we were doing
Yep.
so.
Yeah, definitely. So without further ado, let's bring Miss Bagley up to the stage. Welcome, friend. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Good evening. Thank you both. Thank you for having me from across the pond. I do say that as well. Don't worry.
So do me a favor, introduce yourself to our audience here in America.
Thank you. So, my name's Philippa Bagley. I served 14 years in the British Army as reservist. So I spent about 5 years of that in the Royal Signals doing SATCOMs, and the other sort of 9, 10 years with the Intelligence Corps doing a whole variety of things, as you can imagine. In parallel, though, I had my civilian career. So I worked initially as a teacher. Then I switched into the corporate world, and it was then I started to explore sort of neuroscience, mental health, as you rightly called out, and I transitioned into psychotherapy a couple of years ago.
Mm. So what's it like, doing psychotherapy on veterans that some you might have served with, some you might not have served with? Tell me what that's like.
Um, it's it's a very personal thing for me, as I'm sure you can imagine. I think everyone who has served, regardless of what nation, anyone who's been in a war environment or an operational environment, you all encounter different moments of transformation. Some are big, some are little, and some leave very indelible marks on your soul, I guess. But you don't always realize that till later on. And so it's really interesting seeing at what point, first of all, you can be aware of you've been through trauma, and when you have to start to deal with that, and also how we deal with it as well is very, very individual. And so when I started to sort of see people around me struggling, you feel helpless because as a any kind of military person, you kind of trained to take action, aren't you? And you follow your SOPs, you follow your training, you follow whatever it is meant to do, and there's no real handbook given, at least in the UK, talking about mental health facilities. There's no real handbook to what happens when someone stops functioning in that way. And I didn't like that feeling at all, as you can imagine. Uh, and so I started to study and find out, and I started off with like a mental health first aid course. I thought this is really interesting, and I did another course, and I started looking at neuroscience because a lot of the what we'd call more holistic modalities of therapy now actually have an amazing foundation in neuroscience.
Yes.
And what I was finding a lot is some of the talking therapy, so some of the psychology work doesn't move people forward for what veterans need. It keeps them stuck in that dark place because you're asked to talk about it again and again and again. And a lot of veterans, like by the time they get to the point where they get the help, they don't want to keep talking. They want to move forward because they want to have that action mindset of do. So that's when I really looked into neuroscience and the psychotherapy world and bringing those modalities together so I could move people forward a lot faster than they were, or in some cases they weren't moving at all.
Mm. Yeah, so there is no handbook. Like when we get out of the military, there is no handbook, like you were saying, on how to deal with the struggles that we're going to face. Because as veterans, all our demons are there. Regardless of what we saw while we were in the military, those demons start creeping. And we talk about idle minds and veterans and how they don't mix. And then there's no handbook on how to deal with the demons that we're going to face. Like I've been married for 19 plus years, been with her for 22 plus. And my demons over the years have got worse. Like my anxieties got worse, my PTS has got worse, my hypervigilance has got worse. And I love how you said that you didn't have a handbook, so you started studying up on how to fix some issues and how to progress past. And ta- for me, talking about what I've went through, it eases the trauma, but it doesn't get rid of the trauma. And then I don't think it ever will. I mean, I can talk about it and bleed it blue in the face, and I'm still going to smell that smell that takes me right back to Haiti,
Yeah.
or or whatever the trigger points that happens. And I know Sam can agree with me as well on that, because there's certain things that happens when and it transports him back to certain places. Um, so how long have you been involved within the veteran community in the UK?
So it's now, because of the pandemic, time blurs. And if you had the same problem, I lose track of the years. It's basically been about 5 years now. Started off part time, just doing what I could, and then as I became more qualified and took everything over, it's been about 2 years now, sort of fully dedicated to doing this. And I wanted to throw in something when you said about being triggered. When I came home from Afghanistan for about, I reckon it was about 9 months, I kept seeing IED signs everywhere, like cracks in pavements. And it was a really, really conscious effort to not, my brain not to go, that's an IED. And no one ever told you you're going to do that. And I think that's the thing, that no
Yeah.
one ever tells you how your brain's going to respond to all these triggers that you've had. And for me, I think I wasn't myself until about, I came home at Christmas. I wasn't myself until the August or September afterwards. And there was just a moment where something I was okay again. But and the other point you made was that, it's got worse as you get older. I've seen that with so many of my colleagues, because whether they're still serving or whether they've left, there is something about the passing of time and what your brain does with the passing of time, and the fears do get bigger and the anxieties do get bigger. And I don't know if it's just we're more aware of our mortality, or whether it's we've had more time to process what we've been through, but that's definitely a pattern that I see repeated again and again. And now I've forgotten what your question was because I got on a side tangent.
No, it was just how long have you been involved with the veteran
Okay,
community
yeah.
since you got out? So you basically answered,
Yeah.
pandemic, and then how
Yeah.
you progressed to where you're at in the past couple of years. And,
Yeah.
we I've said it a bunch, and I've been a guest on the show numerous times talking about other things. And then obviously, every now and again I get to fill in when the co-host isn't there. But, they train us, I say us here in the United States, especially infantry, for war. They don't train you to come home, right? So
Yeah.
they tell you you have the VA as your resource when you get out. And I'm not sure if the UK has like a veterans affair type thing, but we have at least one resource that we can turn to for our mental care, our physical care, and things like that after we get out. But yeah, I think it was about a month ago, Willis and I did a show, and it's about post-traumatic growth. And right here at UNC, University of North Carolina, Charlotte, they studied post-traumatic stress and found that there are 5 areas that change your life through that traumatic event that you can grow from, right? You may have disabilities that don't allow you to do what you did when you first entered the service, but now you have your other abilities that you can turn to help yourself grow a little bit. And that in itself has helped me out, but also not talking to a psychiatrist, psychologist, a doctor over and over and over and over and over, but talking to other service members about what I've gone through, especially the ones that are hesitant to open up. Because if I can show myself as vulnerable to another service member, and make them understand, listen, you're not alone. There are other people out there that have experienced similar things or the exact same thing as you have. And of course that helps them in turn. So it's kind of a one for one. And then of course, if that person can help somebody else, that person can help somebody else. And, we have a huge problem here in the United States with veteran suicide. And,
Mm-hmm.
the number has been miscued since the beginning, and it continues to be. but the number is coming down. And I don't know if it's because there's been so much emphasis put on it and so much awareness raised around it, or it's actually veterans just getting the help and realizing that I do have something wrong with me and I need to get myself fixed.
It's a really interesting question. And we have a similar problem in terms of suicide rates. And what I love about the US setup is you do have the VA organization, but I also think it's so important for men to talk to other men about this stuff, because statistically speaking, the suicide rate is higher in men. Naturally, you're talking about it less, and naturally you feel more of the frontline operational roles, so you tend to have experience more trauma. Now, we all know with the nature of war now, there's often no frontliners per se, because you can be attacked from anywhere. But still, statistically speaking, there is that segment. In the UK, a lot of the support is done via charities. So obviously we have the National Health Service, and whilst you're serving, you do have access to, I guess, military exclusive resources. But once you leave, it is a bit of a lottery based on where you live and what you do. So I live in a place called the Forest of Dean. It's on the Welsh border between England and Wales. And there is a rifles barracks about 20 minutes down the road from me, which actually, unfortunately, they're shutting down. But the rifles, for example, have a massive, massive suicide rate. But it's been dealt with via the rifles charity more than mainstream services. And this, to me, feels fundamentally wrong. Like, we shouldn't be relying on charities to do this work. But we are, because one big difference between the US and the UK is how overtly proud the US is of its military. Whereas in the UK, it's always been an understated thing. And it goes through love-hate as well. So there were times I think after the Iraq War, where if you were in uniform, chances are you'd have someone with an opinion that wasn't that positive towards the military. And then it kind of went up again with Afghanistan a little bit. It does this. Also, traditionally, we're going way back when we had the IRA threat from Northern Ireland. So those who don't know, the IRA was the Irish Republican Army, and there was a lot of bombing attacks in the UK from the IRA. So of course, being military at that point made you a target. So you were never encouraged to walk around being a military person. Now, this was my childhood, and so we're only talking like the last 30 to 35 years ago. And thank goodness that part of our lives has changed. But the recognition of military is still very restrained, I would say. And we come out of Remembrance Day. In fact, I bought a train ticket with my veterans card the other week, and someone said, "Thank you for your service." That's like the first time about 3 years I think I'd had that. So,
Wow.
Whereas I know in the US, if you flashed anything vaguely military, you guys are all over it. And I don't think that helps the UK position of talking about these problems, because if you're already afraid of people judging you because of what you've done service-wise, then why would you even go one step further and go, and actually I have a problem as a result of what I've done for this country?
Right.
It makes it very hard.
So in that mindset, it's more like giving the people ammunition against the UK forces, because now the service members have trauma that they are dealing with from serving in the military in the UK, which we as American veterans, we have our trauma as well. So, and we do get to talk about it, and the more I think I don't know how we could make the stigma go away for UK forces and American forces, where we're not broken, we're okay, but we need a little bit of help. Um, and I'm glad that there's somebody like you that's willing to step out in the forefront and talk about what's going on in the UK. I think that's friggin' amazing. So what's this? Sam, you got another question real quick?
Yeah, I mean, and it sounds like the way that you guys are being treated over there is like how our Vietnam veterans got treated when they came back, right? There was a big divide within the country, and a lot of it was media based. But that group of Vietnam veterans made sure that my generation didn't get treated like that when we came home, and the generations after them. And I don't know what could be done other than the government coming out and publicly thanking everybody that served, especially during a time of conflict or war. And, for us, we're a voluntary force. I don't know if you guys are, or if it's, like a mandatory thing, like some like Korea and Greece and stuff are. But, even if it is, you're still serving your country to some capacity in whatever role you're doing. Right. So it's just one of those things that I wish that other countries would get on board with some of the things that we're doing. I mean, our VA healthcare isn't the greatest overall. I mean, there are some that are really, really good, and there's some that are not so great. But at least they're there for us if we need them. And I think that you guys need some type of medical care that for the veterans.
Specializes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to piggyback real quick. I agree. I think there needs to be something that focuses strictly on the British military, because I know your healthcare in the UK is a little bit different than our healthcare here in America, anyway. But I think, like Sam was saying, I think it's something needs to be that specializes strictly for service members in the UK. So,
No, I completely agree. And
or maybe you're the one that starts it.
well, this is where we go back to the charities, right? So there are some amazing charities in the UK. There's Combat Stress. There is Help for Heroes. Prince Harry did the Invictus game, which helps us a lot. The Rifles Association, but I think this is where we've almost overachieved through the charity sector, because it has become the de facto provider of these services, which is great, but that is depending on funding and on fundraising. And so, I'm running the London Marathon in April this year. I'm doing it for blind veterans, because apparently they can't see to run it themselves. How rude!
Right.
But this is how we do it. We do the fundraising, we do that, we do the volunteer of our time, and we almost accept it as the normal way of treating it. But what we're seeing is that it's just not enough. There isn't enough resources. But that does reflect a bigger problem of mental health provision in the UK, which is there isn't enough of it either.
Yeah.
And again, the pandemic triggered off this mass healthcare crisis, not just in the UK, I know around the world. And when you have again, I love the NHS. Obviously, it's what I know, and it's served me very, very well. But when you are catering to the masses, you cannot cater to everybody.
Right.
And this is where I think the way that the US is set up to have that specific focus on the veterans is really important. I also probably need to give a bit more credit to the UK public. And Samuel, your point around the media. So the media loves to vilify everyone, doesn't it? And the military is always a good target to do, because it can be seen as controversial in what you do.
Yeah.
I think people who know veterans or know service persons or live in those areas are generally very supportive. But it's the population who don't encounter them in a regular basis, who have these ideas around what the military does and doesn't do, fueled by either incorrect or dangerously biased media articles. That's where you get the problem. I do think if you ask the average person, they'd be very supportive, but there's not the culture of naturally looking out in the way that I think the US does.
Yeah.
And it's mostly because it's not as widespread. It's not ingrained into our culture. And also, particularly, I don't want to get into politics, but not many of our politicians have now served either. And so you don't have those people in government who also understand what it means to go to an operations zone, or actually how little, like an infantry soldier, gets paid to go and put his life on the line.
Yes.
When you think about it. And while our MPs sit in Parliament on their $100,000 a year going, oh, this is terrible, we should cut the armed forces, you're going, sure, that guy over there got 14 grand and he was 18 years old. It's hard to combat that kind of attitude and culture.
And that's still happening here. I mean, they've been wanting to get rid of the Marine Corps for a long time. And every time the discussion comes up about getting rid of the Marine Corps, something around the world happens. And who do they call? The Marine Corps. And it's like, oh, we need the Marines. And then, of course, there's nothing going on right now. I mean, that we're heavily involved in, like in Iraq, Afghanistan, stuff like that. Now, there are people still forward deployed to, Syria and some of those other places, but it's smaller groups. And, and we're the same. There are more people that serve in legislature that are service members than previous years, but that's, I mean, I think there's still more that haven't served
Right.
than do or did.
I think there's also a lack of understanding of the impact of decisions that are made in government on military folks. So the withdrawal of Afghanistan was actually a big trigger again for us because, and I'm sure it's the same for you guys, we, over a decade of service in the country doing what, I'm not going to say it was for Queen and country, but while we were there, we worked with Afghans, we helped us in different programs as with you guys. And then the way we suddenly withdrew, like that felt like a betrayal to a lot of people. What was the point? The way the Taliban came in, 30 seconds later, that for many people resulted in, I think, of almost a crisis of identity as well. Going, what was it for? What were these deaths for? What was these traumas for? And that's when you want to have legislators who understand real long-term planning when you go into these operations, not just, oh, I'm bored now, or I can't afford it now. Because if you think you can't afford it in 10 years' time, then don't go in, because there'll be a price for everyone to pay who has served.
Yeah. And then on the flip side of that, if you can't take care of those that went over and served, don't send them.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to spend the money to get them right, don't send them.
Yeah, and what's up, Brown Roof? The whole Afghanistan thing, we lost a lot of great men and women in that time frame, and I didn't agree with the sudden, abrupt pull out of the country. And I don't think any military man or woman out there that served in that 20 years agreed with that pullout. It's just something that happened, and to see the Taliban pretty much just following our footsteps as we were walking out the door, it was disheartening. As a country, that here we liberated a country, and then 20 seconds later, Taliban took it right back over. It really set a fire. Let's just put it set a fire in a lot of people's hearts, and it blew my mind. And and a lot of the veterans that served during that, um, that triggered a lot of them. It triggered a lot of the PTS from there, and it just, oh my God, it blows my mind. So when without getting into too much detail with like people that you've helped and stuff like that, when you're dealing with a patient that has chronic PTS or chronic anxiety or chronic phobias, what are some of the tools that you utilize to help them?
Yeah, great question. So, one of the really good, when I say modality, I mean any kind of therapy approach. So, a really good modality is actually clinical hypnosis. And I will tell you this: I used to think it was all made up because I was that kind of person until I studied it. And this is why I love neuroscience, because it's all about rewiring the brain. So, a lot of what I'll do with anybody, regardless of the problem, is I will do some clinical hypnosis, basically de-stressing sessions. I like to call it a hypno nap, because it's very gentle, it's very pain-free, and it's almost like you're asleep. In some cases, people do fall asleep. The reason I do this is with any kind of anxiety, phobia, PTSD, you're operating from the emotional part of your brain. So if you think of your brain in two halves, the top half is the intelligent brain, the bottom is the emotional brain, and we all have these two halves. And any kind of stimulus you get, your brain goes, what should I do with this information? What should I do with this event? And the emotional brain goes, here is my fight or flight response. And the intelligent brain then goes, but hang on, chill out, don't worry. Now, when you've got serious levels of stress, anxiety, PTSD, that intelligent response isn't getting through. All you're having is the fight or flight response, or fight, flight, freeze or fawn, if you want to do the whole situation. And of course, the more you have that response, the more it becomes the behavior, the more it becomes the norm for people. So by looking at just starting by de-stressing the person by using some clinical hypnotherapy, then essentially you're stopping the brain from going just to the emotional place. You're starting to allow it the time to relax, and you're creating a new template for behavior. And so generally speaking, before I go into any deep phobia, any deep trauma, I will spend a couple of sessions just doing some clinical hypnotherapy of a general relaxation, body scan, usually some confidence thrown in there because we always do more confidence, and just allow that person to not even worry about what they have to worry about. It's just bring it down. And I also actually use some neurolinguistic programming techniques. And this is all about rewiring the brain. And there's a really easy, simple one called a twist. But you're working on a negative memory or thought and a good one. It doesn't have to be the worst one, just a bad one. And what you're doing is you're scrambling the brain. So instead of thinking about the negative one, you start thinking about the positive, and you keep doing this. And the moment you get bored doing the exercise, you know it's working because you're no longer thinking about the bad stuff. You're thinking, I'm really bored now because it doesn't have any effect on me. But with all these things, we don't want you to feel good about what happens. Like that'd be great, but it's not realistic. We want you to feel neutral about what happens. We want you to not be triggered by what happens. And so just by doing a couple of sessions of neurolinguistic programming with some clinical hypnotherapy, that can straight away lower the stress bucket. It can get you out of the emotional brain into the intelligent brain. And then you've got the space to think about the really deep stuff. Because if you imagine everyone as a stress bucket, and that's filling out. And when your stress bucket is full, like a drop can make the bucket overflow. And that's what you're seeing with people who are suffering with PTSD. That's why, you have the anger, the lack of sleep, the irritability. It's just because the stress bucket is so full, the drop will trigger it. So we just want to bring that down. And then we can go, okay, so what's the next layer we have to deal with? And it may not be the deepest, darkest thing still. There may be a whole bunch of things in between, but then we can start looking at reframing experiences. The great thing about the brain, and this is why I love neuroscience over psychology, is that the brain doesn't know what's real or what's not. And so you can take a really bad experience and you can reframe it so that it no longer feels so bad, and your brain thinks, oh, that's the reality now. Now it has to be done under supervision. The danger of this is you can introduce false memories. This is the power of the brain. You can get it to believe whatever it wants to believe. But with all of my patients, so I had someone actually, this wasn't a PTSD, but it was an extreme phobia. It was the wife of a Marine, in fact. She suffered from extreme phobia of heights and open spaces. But they loved going running. And being married to a Marine, they did a lot of running. And they go up and down these hills, and she couldn't go up the hills. She would have a physiological reaction to she would cry, her legs would go jelly, she just couldn't do it. And they planned this big 10K race in Italy, in the Dolomites. And she said, look, I just need to get over this. And so about 4 sessions it was. But the nice thing was, so we did the work, we got to the very root of the phobia, and we rewired the brain, so it no longer saw the height as a scary thing, but as a thing to be enjoyed, to look forward to. And actually, the great thing was, it was her husband who said, how are you okay? Because she was running up and down these hills and hadn't noticed that she didn't have a problem anymore. So that's how powerful neuroscience can be. And it's the same with PTSD. So some of the guys I've worked with, again, we've lowered those stress levels first. We didn't go straight for the kill because that's just a bit too much. We lowered the stress levels, and then we looked at what was it that was replaying in their minds, and how do we change that? So, you talk about smells. I mean, smell is such a powerful trigger anyway. But we actually replanted memories of lavender as opposed to gunpowder. We changed the color of the memory. So, it was kind of grainy. It went to sun and sunshine. But suddenly we just rechanged everything. And it wasn't that they couldn't remember what happened, because also people don't always want to forget, because there's often like people who are killed in these memories as well. But we've just changed it so it's neutral. You're no longer anxious, angry, afraid, feeling guilty, of course, feeling helpless. You just feel neutral, and that's how you can move on.
I love that a lot. And I love the approach. I when it comes to hypnotherapist, I'm like you. That don't work. That's what my brain says. Oh, that won't work. But I've seen too many people that have gone to a hypnotherapist, and it worked. It fixed the issues that they were having, whether it was smoking a cigarette or overeating or whatever. So for all you naysayers out there, hypnotherapy does work. And I'm so glad that that's something that you're very passionate about. Um, so you're in a process of getting ready to start a podcast. What is your podcast going to be focused on?
So I have started it, I'd say. It's called Journey to Purpose. It's on Apple and Spotify everywhere, but essentially I thought it was going to be around the neuroscience of people's problems and exploring that. And I realized that actually you don't always want to know why something works. Like, I want to know why something works. So I want to know that it works for the people I'm working it with. But what I thought was more important was to have people who have been through different journeys and have come out the other side of these dark places and have stories to tell. So far I've had a range of guests. I had a Canadian law enforcement who actually, it turned out he was abused as a child. And this is something really important to servicemen as well, because if you've had trauma as a child, your chances of getting PTSD are greatly increased from service as well. And that applies to law enforcement as well. Yeah. And but you don't realize this at the time, of course. And so he did a lot of work. So we had a great conversation about his journey and his recovery. I actually had a political prisoner. He was dual national Venezuela Texan, and he was held prisoner for 5 years in Venezuela, 1 year in solitary confinement. He was an old executive, and he was held as a political prisoner between the fallout between the US and Venezuela at the time. And I've had some people who just, transformed, left their corporate jobs and become holistic wellbeing coaches, or who have, I think I've just interviewed people who work also in other kind of coaching therapy areas as well, but they've come there because of something in their life that has happened to them. But the reason I have this range of guests is because I can't help everybody, but they don't all need my kind of help. But I'm also not the right fit for everybody, and that's perfectly okay. But my hope is if you listen to an episode and you resonate with it, then you kind of know that there's a way out to the other side of where you're at. And when you're stuck in pain, and you guys know this, well, when you're stuck in pain, you think there's no end to it, and you think that no one else has been through your pain. And the truth is, pain is temporary. It might be a very long time temporary pain, but pain is temporary. And you need to understand that there are people around the world who have come out the other side of that pain. And so you can too.
Mm, mm. That's powerful. I mean, that's super powerful. Oh,
So here in the U.S., it was like 2007, traumatic brain injury. Do you guys have that post-concussive syndrome, stuff like that? So
Yeah.
have you seen any correlation with instead of it being post-traumatic stress, being the brain injury piece that that part of the brain is damaged or dying or whatever, that cognitive function or the memory is skewed because of that? And how do you? I'm asking for me. I was blown up twice. I've got 2 TBIs with 2 grade 2 concussions from the blast. Is there any way to get past that to retrain the brain, to either the memory or to start that part of the brain start firing again?
Without knowing your complex medical history, but I can give you a direct answer. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry you went through that as well, because that adds to the frustration of what you're trying to recover from. But so I don't deal with that personally, but there's I was doing some work with the University of Leicester in the UK on PTSD, and they've looked at that in particular. But the great thing about the brain, and this is again why I'm such a neuroscience passionate person these days, is because it can be rewired, retrained, relearned. With my understanding of severe sort of post traumatic injury, though, is there will be some parts that are lost, but it doesn't mean they're lost forever. And I know of somebody I interviewed who had I think they had a stroke maybe, and they were told they would never speak again, and within 8 months they were speaking. So part of it is like never underestimate the power of the brain and what it can do. And we used to think that the brain was kind of fixed. So like in the case of PTI, that that was kind of it. You know, you'd now be this new person.
Yeah.
It's not to say it's a very long journey. It is not easy, but with the right help, you can rewire certain neuro pathways to get back certain aspects of what was lost. But not everything seems to be the medical case studies for now. That doesn't mean forever, but basically it is always possible. And the way I'd approach it again is looking at things like, first of all, clinical hypnosis again, because it will help de-stress you in general or anyone else suffering with it. But then understanding what is it, the functions that you want to relearn. So I actually got hit by a car over 20 years ago now. So I was living in Russia. My undergraduate degree was in Russian and history, and a drunk driver ran through a red light, knocked me over. Now, when I woke up in hospital, I couldn't remember what had happened. But I did know I was in Russia, and I knew I had to speak Russian because, like, it's Russia. No one really speaks English.
Yeah.
At least back then they didn't. And I lost all my coordination completely. And even now, my husband laughs at me. There's some things that I forget how to do. Like like putting my scarf on in a certain way. My brain goes, I know how I want it to look like, but I can't remember the steps to get it there. And I have to do it a couple of times. And if I don't do it regularly, then it just takes a while to come back. And so that was a brain trauma, a brain injury. Now, what I found when I was 21 at the time, so you are a bit more malleable then still. It's harder as you get older. And the one thing I haven't learned to do again, which is not at all required, is jump over hurdles. Could never coordinate my legs to jump over those damn hurdles. My brain was just like, I know, I used to do it. And thankfully, the army didn't want me to do that much. And that's actually why I joined the army, because I joined the army to test if my body was fixed, which made sense when I was like 22. As an adult, as a 40-year-old, something now, like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
But hey, there we go. So if everything can be relearned, but it's not easy, and it is that repetition, and there is the the eventuality that if you don't do it again, you'll forget that thing again, and you have to relearn it again. That's a challenge, and it's being kind to yourself in that process and not getting annoyed at yourself, which is also super hard when you're someone who's really active, who's done loads of stuff. And you're like, why can't I do this thing?
Yeah.
Or why can't I remember this thing? And if being kind to yourself is probably the biggest thing you can do as well.
No, I love that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think I have an undocumented TBI, and I'm just started my VA process last year. So I'm still working my way to get to all my doctor's appointments assigned or scheduled and all of that. If I leave the treatment for an undocumented TBI for a really long time, what's the likelihood that it wouldn't be reversible?
I don't think I can
Answer that.
pass comment on that. But what I will say with any head trauma is there is a greater risk of Alzheimer's, dementia from having these injuries. And so what I would always encourage is to go and get it checked out, regardless of how big or bad you think it is, because it's the stuff down the line that actually is probably more worrying for you and for the families around you. But again, what I will say is, I think I said it already, neuroplasticity, if I haven't said it already, I'll say it again now. Neuroplasticity is the ability of the brain to relearn, rewire, keep growing new skills. And we used to believe that the brain was fixed. We used to believe we'd hit adulthood and that was us done. And the brilliant thing is it's not. So you can relearn, rewire, redo at any point in your life. It is harder as you get older, but with all we were learning around how the brain works, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 10 years we learn how to make it easier as we get older as well. But it's about, it's the whole thing. If you don't use it, you lose it. The brain is a muscle like everything else. You need to work that muscle. When the muscle's injured, you have to do the right exercises to help that muscle recover. It's exactly the same for the brain. And just like if we don't stay fit and healthy now, when we get to our 60s, 70s, and 80s, we will struggle with everyday tasks. It's the same with the brain. And that's the thing to always think about is whoever have these challenges, is don't think about how you're okay now. Think about how you might not be okay in the future. And that'll be 10 times worse. Whereas
Yeah.
you put the work in now, it may not be as slick or as easy or as what it once was, but you will get it to a better level than if you don't do it.
Yeah, I say all the time that the three of us could have the same physical injury, and that orthopedic surgeon can put us all back together the same exact way, right? The rod that's in my leg might be longer or shorter than what's in yours. It's definitely longer than what's in Willis's. But when it comes to the matters of the mind, every single person needs to be treated individually, because in a group setting, because everybody learns differently, right? Everybody's
Yeah.
brain functions differently. Everybody's brain processes things differently, right? And we could have all been in the same area, the same traumatic event, but the three of us, it's going to be, I saw something different than you did.
Yeah.
You saw something different than Willis. Willis saw something different than I did, right? So when it comes to the matters of the mind, it needs to be individual treatment instead of the group treatment. And, my trauma may trigger somebody else in the group, and it's not helping them at all with their recovery aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. Individualization is so important for the mind. And that's one of my biggest grumps with the NHS, actually. So in the NHS, before you can access as like full fat mental health support, you have to do an online CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy program. And CBT is great in certain circumstances, but not for like deep depression, not for a lot of, the psychiatric conditions for sure.
Yeah.
And also you have to be bought into it. And so if you're feeling low and someone says to you, hey, go on this group CBT course, that's not going to be the first thing on your list to do. Now, down the line, a bit of CBT can be really useful for that person when they're bought into their own recovery, when they're bought into what they need to do to own it. But to your point, at the start at least, we need to be really clear on what the individual needs and how that is best given to them. And that's, going back to my podcast, that's why I have the podcast, because not everyone needs my kind of help. And that's okay. That it needs to be individual for them. And we all need to, in an ideal world, I'd love everyone to have, that recipe book of all the different things that we could do to make them feel better, and they just pick the ones that work. And that's often also trial and error, of course. It doesn't always work the first time, and also it doesn't always, you're not always ready as well, is the other thing. And the people I work with, I'm very clear on that they have to do the work and be ready to do the work, because it is them doing the work at the end of the day. I can guide them through it. And if they're not ready, that's okay. I'd love them to all be ready, because I don't want people to suffer, but I can't make them choose to go down that path if they're not ready.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and sorry, Willis, but yeah,
No,
I say
you're
all the time, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with your therapist in order to properly heal. Because if you're inflating, what your service was or what you did in the service or your injuries or whatever else, they can't truly hone in to fix what needs to be fixed, because you've put your situation up here when it's really down here, or vice versa. You're minimizing what your event was, but you're up here. So you have to be honest, truthful, and open about everything that you experienced in order to properly heal or get better.
Yeah. What I will say though is, oh, sorry, Willis, do you want to go?
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
With trauma, what is really important done is what may seem like small thing to one person is a big thing to one person. And what I tend to find with people is we say the problem is not the problem. So, you know, I had someone that she wasn't military, but she came to me with insomnia. And she said to me, "Oh, I think it's the menopause." And I was like, "Okay, how long have you not been sleeping for?" "Oh, about 60 years." That's not the menopause.
That's not the
But that was the story that she was telling herself
Right.
at that time. And after a couple of sessions, we actually discovered that it turns out, unfortunately, she'd been abused as a child in her bedroom, so she couldn't sleep because her bedroom was never a safe space for her.
Yeah.
But it was that honesty, getting to that level of opening up and admitting these things happen, and more so with veterans and military serving folk, that you don't want to be the one from the group who has the problem. You don't want to be seen as that guy or that girl.
Yeah.
Particularly if so apart from the fact why I spent ages looking for IEDs when I came home, actually I had a very, I would say, non-traumatic tour of Afghanistan in the grand scheme of things, because I worked in intelligence. It's a very different game, what I was doing. I wasn't shot at every single day. I always sit there going, it was like Butlins, which is like a holiday resort in the UK. Butlins, people shoot at you sometimes, which is probably how Butlins actually happen sometimes. So I always play down my service, because I'm like, I was in intelligence, I analysed stuff, I worked with drones. It was I sat in Bastion for my tour. It was a very, very mundane, in the military terms, of a tour. But then you have people who have never served, who think that's just the most extreme thing ever.
Yeah.
But I also know guys who never left Bastion or never left Lebanon and still had real problems because their friends died and they felt guilt about it, or they like me, they might have observed people being killed or had to deal with the aftermath of that. So the thing with people is we don't know what the trigger will be.
Yeah.
And it's always layered upon other things. And as we've said already, people who've experienced trauma in their younger years, that layers upon other things. And it could be that just seeing your friend get killed on a video screen is enough to send you in a spiral. We just don't know.
Yep.
And it's really important to acknowledge to anybody who's sitting there going, well, is my trauma valid enough? That any trauma is valid. There's not a size that hits the ratio. It's how you react. And the sooner you can say, I'm not okay, the better it'll be for you in the longer term.
Yeah, it took me a really long time to say I'm not okay. I mean, my wife for 15 plus years is like, hey, you need to go to the VA, get checked out. And like I said, I just started the VA journey last year. So we're pushing almost 19 years now. Since because I got out in 2004, and I didn't go to the VA, and for the longest time, I'm like, oh, I'm good, I'm okay. What's up, Ty Cobb? And it's just like, what do I do? And then my wife came at me one day, and she's like, bro, something's got to change. You're quick to anger, you're quick to all kinds of things. And I was like, okay. So I started going to the VA, got set up with a therapist outside of the VA, community consult through the VA, but outside of the VA. And it just, when I sat in there with the therapist and talked to him and laid it all out on the line, from when I was a itty bitty child, from getting abused by my mama's boyfriends, and I know she's probably maybe still in here listening. The abuse that I suffered at a very young age, and then as I got older and joined the Marine Corps, and the stuff that Sam and I seen when we were in Haiti, and the other stuff that we seen, and stuff that happened to Sam after me and him split our ways. It made it easier, and it has made it easier. And I think I'm realizing some of my triggers when it comes to my wife and kids. Like I try not to snap as much. Yeah, mom's still in here. She just commented. It has made it easier over the years. But now I'm noticing, like, I can have a conversation with my wife or anybody, and then turn around 5 minutes later and forget what we just talked about. And I think that's from the TBI. So it just, there's a lot of things that are going on that I need to focus on to help myself. And I when me and you got connected and I listened to, what you were doing when we did our meet and greet, and I was like, man, this is going to be an amazing episode because you're a wealth of knowledge. And I can't wait to be on your podcast coming up on Wednesday when I get to record our episode. I might see if Sam's available. He can come with me. We can
Come along.
do it together. But so I want to thank you for coming out here and hanging out with. This has been a quick hour. It really has been a quick hour.
But very, very informative.
Lots of information.
Yeah.
So I'm throwing your email out there in chat right now. So, because I know Mr. Ty Cobb, this guy here, he runs he's one of the hosts of the Triple Threat Vets podcast. Hopefully he'll reach out to you and get you on their show. And I'm going to share your information. There's my wife. She just showed up just now. So hopefully we can get you on their show as well. And a few other guys were in here that were veteran podcasters as well, because I think what you are doing in the UK will also translate here in America.
Absolutely.
And I think your story needs to get out there because, for one, you are a veteran. You've been through what we've been through, but you're doing it across the pond. And it's amazing because you guys don't have what we have here, but yet there's still people like you that are serving your veteran community over there. So I applaud you for that.
Yeah. I mean, you even said like that you got a lot of the nonprofits that are stepping up. It's the same here. Honestly, there's a lot more healing happening within the nonprofit community than it is in the hospitals, just because it's like-minded people sitting around a campfire, maybe cracking a cold barley pop and just hashing out their own issues. And instead of, going and doing it with a doctor, they're doing it with their brothers and sisters. And it seems to be more helpful than going to the doctor who just wants to throw, pills down your throat. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not much different here with the nonprofit side of things.
I've seen a lot of I've seen a lot of healing at nonprofits, whether it's equine therapy or outdoor therapy or skydiving, with adrenaline therapy. There's a lot of healing that happens when veterans get together and they sit around a campfire at the end of the day. They've been hanging out all day doing team activities all day. And then at night, they break bread, sit around the fireplace and just start talking. A lot of times the healing happens around that fireplace because you get to talk with other and you get to see what everybody's gone through. And it's just, it's amazing. And so I'm thankful that there's a lot of nonprofits that are stepping up in your neck of the woods there. And it's amazing. So
I think if I can leave with one thing, is just remember that people help people, and particularly in these communities, the chances are if you're thinking it, someone else is thinking it as well. And that's why it's just really important to have these conversations, because it's okay to be thinking these things, but not okay to sit in them. These can be dealt with.
I love that.
Yep.
You got anything else to say, Sam, before we let her go? Because it's 1 o'clock in the morning, her time.
She's the guest. Is there anything else you want to say before you go to bed?
No, it's been wonderful being here. Thank you both so much, and thank you to everyone listening. And honestly, just keep supporting and keep doing what you're doing as well, because these conversations are so important to have.
Awesome. Well, we are going to get you connected with a bunch of other veteran podcasters. On Wednesday we have our tip of the spear. It's 15 different veteran podcasters. Are you available on Wednesday evening?
What time? What time zone?
Same time zone as this.
Time. Oh man, you're killing me. I'll have a nap and then I'll join you if it's midnight again.
Well, we're doing our tip of the spear, which is all these other veteran podcasters. I'd love to have you on there to just to hang out with us and chit chat with us.
Amazing.
And
it's just a gab session. There's no that's all it is. It's just like it's just like going to the barbershop here and you just start doing this, or the beauty salon. You just talk about all your problems.
That sounds great. No, absolutely. I'll at midnight. I'm generally free or asleep, so I'll be up for it.
Well, we'll
All
make
right,
sure
dude.
Willis sends you the link.
Yeah, I will send
Thank
you the
you.
invite probably tonight or tomorrow. So
Perfect.
It's already
awesome.
tomorrow her time, Willis. It's already
Well,
tomorrow.
yeah, it is tomorrow her time. Yeah, yeah.
The
All right.
time travel.
Thank you. You have a great night.
Thank you both. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye bye, dude. How cool
Dude,
was that?
man.
I knew as soon as like me and her talked and we did our meet and greet. I was like, dude, this is gonna be one of those phenomenal episodes. I was like, dude, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And then
I mean, so
Tamara,
much information
oh
that
yeah,
she shared that, I mean, not just for, everybody over there in the UK, but the service members that are here, or just the people that are here that have experienced traumatic things that are listening, to understand that there is a path,
yes,
right? You don't have to let your bad days win.
yeah. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and like she said, you have to talk about it, and you have to, depending on your level of trauma, there's a way out.
Yep.
Or there's always a way out. So I want to thank you, Miss Tamara, from you're one of Miss Philippia's friends, but thank you for coming on and watching with us today. Thank you very much. No, man, I just thought it was going to be a super cool episode, and just just to hear how veterans in other countries are taken care of.
Yeah.
Because I knew that in the UK they don't have VA, they don't have a VA system over there, and like we do here.
You see Parker's comment.
Yeah. Seeing deeds put me in tears. But I knew, I knew over there that the healthcare system was different for
Yeah.
veterans over there than it is here.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of nonprofits, which there's not a whole lot of nonprofits in the UK, but you got some major ones that have stepped up to help take care of the veterans over there.
Well, to especially take care of their own, and that's, I think that's one of the biggest things is, we've talked about it, that, once you leave the service, that's it.
Yeah.
You were a Marine, you were a soldier, you whatever, but you have your friends that you made that you stay in contact with. But at the end of the day, the service doesn't care. You're a number. You're gone. They've already found somebody to fill your spot.
Yeah.
So those other nonprofits that are stepping up to take care of their own. I mean, just much like here, whether it's a civilian nonprofit taking care of veterans or a veteran nonprofit taking care of veterans, a lot of stuff happening over there, and it's great to see for sure.
So I'm going to share this real quick because Brian Gibson was in here just a little bit ago.
Yeah, I saw him in there.
He wants me to share this. So this is, let's go full screen. This is good. This is better. This will help the most. Hashtag check your vet. And it's a faith-based, scripture-led Romans 15:13 veteran nonprofit building facilities for the veteran community. So I wanted to share that. So you can go to projectdiehard.org and check out this nonprofit that was founded in 2018. So go give them a check out.
Yeah, he said they got a fellowship breakfast coming up on December 4th in Paducah, and veterans receive a free meal. So I'm guessing go to Project Die Hard and check out .org and check out the events they have coming up, and I'm sure they'll be there to give you the correct address and time and things you need to do for that breakfast.
And then tomorrow, let's see, why don't I have it up here? We have, let's see, where is it at? There it is. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, we got Michael Segru. Let me take this brand off here.
Man, you're so country.
I know, right? So Michael is a United States Air Force veteran and also a police officer. He also wrote a book called Relentless Courage: Winning the Battle Against Frontline Trauma. So we're going to have him on tomorrow, and that's also talking about PTS and stuff.
Man, that's going to be a great follow-up to.
Yes. it definitely is going to be a great follow up. I'm super.
I don't know how you follow her, but still, that was a lot. So.
Oh, dude, you're not telling me nothing. It's going to be hard to follow Miss Philippa there for sure, because that was, that whole hour it was packed with information, but it was information that was needed to be out there.
Yeah,
and it's like, bro, it's amazing. I can't wait to be on the other side of the mic when she's interviewing me and you, because I'm bringing you along with me on Wednesday. I gotta shoot you the time and stuff for that, but it's going to be amazing. So
the only thing I'm doing is cooking on Wednesday.
Yeah,
I've got lumpia I have to make. I've got a sweet potato casserole I have to make. I've got corn pudding I have to make, and I've got a spaghetti salad I have to make. So the only thing I have is cooking. I can be interrupted during that time. I will just say I might welcome an interruption from that.
So it will be, let's see. So Wednesday's the 27th. So it's going to be at 11 a.m. our time. So, and then we got Tip of the Spear that night. So it'll be, I think we'll have a good time. All right, Mr. Parker, see you later. Bye. But no, man, it's a great show. I can't thank her enough for coming on here. We talk about this all the time. Hashtag be someone stranger. And what we mean by that as humans, I'm not even just going to put it into the genre of veterans, but as humans, we are more apt to talk to a complete stranger than we are the ones that we love the most. So hashtag be someone stranger. Be an ear for somebody. And that leads into, you have to ask the next hard question. Because I can go up to Deeds and say, hey, Deeds, how you doing today? And Deeds is going to say, I'm okay. I'm hanging in there. I'm living the dream, which are telltale signs that something else is going on within Deeds' brain at that moment. So you have to ask that next hard question. How are you really doing? But you have to be ready for that conversation. It could be a 10-minute conversation, could be a 15-minute conversation, could be a 5-hour conversation. You have to be ready for that conversation. Yep. So let's play that commercial real quick, Mr. Deeds. So if you're a veteran or human in general, because humans can, or just anybody can dial 988, the crisis line. 988, if you're not a veteran, 988 *1 if you are a veteran. So let's play this BetterHelp commercial real quick. That commercial gets me every time. Night, Mama. I'll see you on Thanksgiving, Mama. So yeah, 988 *1 if you're a veteran, 988 if you're a family member or veteran, or just needed somebody to talk to. You can chat with them via the 988 line. You can text them. You can go online and chat with them online as well. If you don't like the person you're talking with, you can hang up and disconnect. If you did not connect with them, you can just, and then reconnect and you'll get somebody completely different. So you can definitely do that. And then HomeFront Sitrep is on reachacrossAmerica.org/radio. You can find it on the TuneIn app, iHeartRadio, Audacity app. So you can go and search the word Wreath and it'll bring up Reach Across America Radio. HomeFront Sitrep is on there on Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern. And I actually just listened to the first one.
Nice.
Because I don't normally go back and listen to our stuff.
I do. I want to make sure I don't sound like an idiot at any time during the show. So that way I can be like, man, I need to change what I'm talking about or change my tone, or why was my head cocked like that the entire. I go back and look at every single one of them.
I love it. I love it. So let's play that commercial real quick and then we'll end up out of here.
Hey, it's Willis. Join Candace and I from HomeFront Sitrep on Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern on Reese Across America Radio. You can find Reese Across America Radio on the iHeartRadio app, the Audacity app, and TuneIn app. Search the word Reese.
I mean, I got to make sure I'm not talking like this all the time, and everybody can see my face when I'm talking. I mean, I go back and I analyze all that stuff, and maybe it's just me being vain, but I go back and look at all of it. Like as soon as we get off here and it posts, I'm watching it.
There you go. No, it's just like when I was doing all the editing, like when we first started, it got so mundane. I was like, dude, I'm not even gonna go back and watch because I'm already watching it, over already. And it's like, dude, I'm doing lives. It's already happened. It already happened. Because it's live.
You can't change anything at that point.
Can't change it. It's already out there to the masses. Once it's there, it's there.
But there might be information that you missed that you watch it again and you find, oh yeah, okay, now I know what you're talking about. So there's also that piece as well.
Oh man, the wife and kids are home. Just heard them.
I guess it's about that time then.
Yeah, it's about that time. So, Sam, take us out of here.
Like we always say on HomeFront Sitrep, be safe out there. We got your six.
We got your six. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this show.
Suggestions and comments are always welcome.
Cannot wait to have another great show with y'all.
Don't forget you can find HomeFront Sitrep on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Stay safe out there. I got your six.